Hello, everyone. My name is Jordan Lewis, and today we delve into one of hip hop's most enduring tragedies, the unsolved murders of Tupac Shakur and Christopher Wallace, better known as the notorious B.I.G. These two artists were titans of the genre, whose careers tragically ended just 6 months apart in drive-by shootings. Their deaths became intricately linked to the intense East Coast West Coast hip hop rivalry of the 1990s. Decades later, with no convictions in Biggie's case and only a recent arrest in Tupac's, a complex web of conspiracy theories has emerged, attempting to make sense of these shocking events. We will explore some of these theories, examine the counter evidence, and discuss how concepts from critical thinking help us understand why these narratives gain traction. First, let's quickly recap the events. On September 7th, 1996, after attending a Mike Tyson fight in Las Vegas, Tupac Shakur was in a car driven by Death Row Records head Suge Knight. At a red light, a white Cadillac pulled up and a gunman opened fire. Tupac was hit multiple times and died 6 days later. Six months later, on March 9th, 1997, Christopher Wallace, aka the notorious B.I.G., was in Los Angeles for a music industry party. As he left the Peterson Automotive Museum, a dark Chevy Impala pulled alongside his vehicle at a red light, and shots were fired into the passenger side. Biggie was pronounced dead shortly after. One prominent theory regarding Tupac's murder suggests a direct link to Biggie Smalls. According to reports, investigative reporter Chuck Phillips alleged that Tupac was killed as revenge for an earlier altercation that night at the MGM Grand with Orlando Baby Lane Anderson. The theory claims that Anderson, a member of the Southside Crips gang, fired the fatal shots. Furthermore, it alleges that the notorious B.I.G. provided the murder weapon to Anderson and agreed to pay a $1 million bounty for Tupac's death, motivated by their rivalry and Tupac's diss track, Hit 'Em Up. However, this theory faces significant challenges. Chuck Phillips' reporting, particularly the claim that Biggie funded the murder, has been widely disputed, and some sources he relied on were later discredited. Orlando Anderson himself denied any involvement and was never charged before being killed in an unrelated shooting in 1998. Crucially, despite the persistence of this theory, recent developments in Tupac's case point elsewhere. In 2023, Dwayne Keefe D. Davis, Orlando Anderson's uncle, was arrested and indicted for Tupac's murder. Davis claims he was in the car from which the shots were fired and knows the shooter, but his public accounts, while implicating his deceased nephew as possibly involved, do not support the claim of Biggie orchestrating the hit. The official charges against Davis do not mention Biggie's involvement. Another theory prominently featured in documentaries like Biggie and Tupac suggests that Suge Knight orchestrated Tupac's murder. This theory, often associated with retired LAPD detective Russell Poole, says that Knight may have feared Tupac leaving Death Row Records and becoming a business competitor. The idea is that Tupac would be more commercially valuable to Death Row as a martyr after his death. Some versions of this theory also involve corrupt police officers assisting Knight in a cover up. Opponents of the Suge Knight theory highlight that Knight was in the car with Tupac during the shooting and was also injured, suggesting it's unlikely he would place himself in such direct danger. Furthermore, this theory, particularly its connection to police corruption regarding Tupac's death, has been called speculative and based on questionable sources. Suge Knight has consistently denied involvement in Tupac's death. In fact, he has claimed that he believes he was the intended target of the shooting. Moving on to Biggie Smalls' murder, the most widespread theory is that it was a direct act of retaliation for Tupac's death 6 months prior. Given the intense rivalry between Tupac's West Coast based Death Row Records and Biggie's East Coast based Bad Boy Records, and the similarities in their drive by shootings, many immediately concluded that Biggie was killed as payback for Tupac's murder. This narrative suggests that someone affiliated with the West Coast or Death Row sought revenge on Bad Boy's biggest star. Despite being a widely speculated motive, law enforcement has stated there is no conclusive evidence linking Biggie to Tupac's murder, nor definitively proving that the retaliation theory is the true motive for Biggie's killing. Other potential motives have been explored, including a claim that Biggie owed money to Southside Compton Crips for security services. Furthermore, theories we'll discuss in the next point to entirely different perpetrators and motives unrelated to direct retaliation by the West Coast for Tupac's death. While the timing and rivalry are compelling, the direct causal link for Biggie's murder based on retaliation has not been conclusively proven by evidence presented in the sources. Similar to one theory about Tupac, a significant conspiracy theory regarding Biggie's death centers on Suge Knight and alleged corrupt LAPD officers. This theory alleges that Knight orchestrated Biggie's murder, potentially in retaliation for Tupac's death, and was assisted by LAPD officers, some of whom allegedly worked off duty for Death Row Records. Retired LAPD detective Russell Poole was a proponent of this theory, suggesting LAPD officer David Mack and Mack's associate Amir Muhammad were involved. Some sources allege Knight paid for the hit. Despite gaining significant attention, the evidence supporting the corrupt LAPD/Suge Knight theory has been challenged. The FBI conducted an investigation into the possibility that a rogue LAPD officer and Suge Knight orchestrated the killing, but they closed the case in 2005, citing a lack of evidence. A key informant for this theory was later revealed to be unreliable and admitted his information was based on hearsay. The individuals accused, including David Mack, Amir Muhammad, and Suge Knight, have denied any involvement. The wrongful death lawsuit filed by Biggie's family against the city of Los Angeles based on this theory was ultimately dismissed. Now, let's consider why these and many other theories about Tupac and Biggie's death continue to circulate. Concepts from skeptical thinking help us understand this. First, there's the human tendency toward pattern recognition. The timing, the rivalry, the similar manner of death, these patterns feel significant, leading people to connect dots even without strong evidence. Second, our emotional connection to these iconic artists and the desire for justice and closure makes accepting that their deaths remain unsolved or were potentially the result of random, simple violence incredibly difficult. We struggle to accept that someone so influential could die at the hands of some gangster, preferring the idea of a larger, maniacal conspiracy. This feeds confirmation bias, where people seek out and accept information that supports a preferred theory, while dismissing contradictory evidence. Finally, the lack of definitive official answers creates a void that theories rush to fill. When institutions don't provide a complete, satisfying explanation, alternative narratives thrive. In conclusion, the murders of Tupac Shakur and the notorious Big remain tragic and, for Biggie's case, officially unsolved. While there has been a significant arrest in Tupac's case, it does not yet provide a final answer. The many theories surrounding their deaths highlight our natural inclination to find explanations for shocking events, even in the absence of clear evidence. As consumers of information, especially concerning high profile mysteries, it's crucial to practice skepticism, question narratives, seek multiple viewpoints, and be wary of explanations that rely more on compelling patterns and emotional satisfaction than rigorous evidence. The true story of their deaths remains a complex and painful mystery, a reminder of the lives and potential lost. And these are my works cited. Thank you very much.